But this firing outside Kapil Sharma's restaurant in Surrey isn't the first such incident by the Khalistani terrorists in Canada. For a country that claims it believes in rule-based order, one would expect stronger action against a pattern of crimes. And we'll list that out to you. This is inaction, or is this vote bank politics at play here? Joining me on this special broadcast, Terry Milvsky is a senior Canadian journalist and author, Blood for Blood, 50 Years of Global Khalistan Project. Kushal Mehra is a very well-respected Indian author and analyst, joins us from Canada. Shashi Kant is former Director General of Police, Punjab, someone who's tracked Khalistan terror very closely. But I want to ask Terry first, Babbar Khalsa International, it's already claimed responsibility for this shooting. Should Canada have taken stronger action against a terrorist organization that claimed responsibility not just for this shooting, but you know better, you've authored a book, you've studied the subject, that 1985 Air India AI-182 bombing, 329 people were killed, Canada's worst terrorist attack, and yet that organization flourishes, sir.
And the Babbar Khalsa International remained a legal organization, and it was only banned years later. It has been an extraordinary ride for many Khalistani organizations, including the Babbar Khalsa and the Babbar Khalsa International, which is taking responsibility for this latest shooting in Surrey. I don't necessarily take for granted that somebody steps forward and says, well, I'm a gangster, but I'm going to try to improve my religious credentials by taking responsibility for this in the name of the Babbar Khalsa. We're not just average extortionists committing crimes. Oh no, we're not street criminals. We're something more glamorous than that. We're revolutionaries fighting for an independent state of Khalistan. Yeah, well, we'll see about that. I don't take that for granted, that just because somebody claims responsibility, he is responsible. Because, as you have rightly reported a moment ago, there has been a whole string of just plain extortions, and putting a new label on them, it's just out of the 1930s movies where the mafia comes to your restaurant and says, nice place you got here. Shame if something would happen to it, huh? So you got to pay me to protect you from me. And that's what's been going on. There has been a number of incidents which you've mentioned. So the situation we're now in is where Babbar Khalsa is claiming a responsibility. If this turns out to be true, that may be a big if, but if it turns out to be true, then I think Prime Minister Carney has a problem. Because he is supposed to be the new broom. He is supposed to sweep clean. He's not supposed to duplicate the permissive attitude of his predecessors, and I'm including all parties, not just the Liberals, but the Conservatives before them. And of course the NDP, which was led by a Khalistani sympathizer for some time. In fact, they propped
Khalistani
up
sympathizers
the Trudeau
being
government.
a part, of the political system in Canada. Is that the reason why action is not being taken? Give me a moment. Let me bring in Kushal Mehra also into this conversation. Kushal, I was going through that CSIS report of 2025, and this report explicitly names Khalistani extremists as using Canada to support violence for a Khalistani state and targeting India. Now, despite this, Caps Cafe was targeted, and there have been earlier instances. What does this say about Canada's commitment to action against these Khalistani elements, or is this just on paper, it's vote bank politics?
Good evening, Gaurav, and good evening to everyone else who's watching this. This is, basically the seeds were sown a long time ago. Prime Minister Harper tried to correct a few of those things. I would not say completely. And Terry is right that the entire Canadian political class is very much into it. And now, we are looking at what has happened. The Khalistan is no longer a secessionist movement. We need to completely redefine what Khalistan is. Khalistan is actually now a proper gang infestation, and it actually has multiple verticals. It's like a business. It has drugs, it has human trafficking, it has sexually trafficking innocent girls of Indian origin. It also has extortions, and this is not just a one-off case. Gaurav, Kapil being a celebrity, it has made the most news, but we had a shooting in Mississauga recently. We've
Yes.
had shootings in Surrey recently. We've had shootings in Brampton recently. We've had arrests being made by Peel police under specifically, there is a unit which is covering the extortion bit. This is all a culmination of what actually was led to happen under Prime Minister Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh's government, and Prime Minister Carney has to take over everything that they have given to him. You have given these people a free run in Canada. They literally, I don't know, I have to check the veracity of the video till now by Gurpatwant Singh Pannu, but I just saw a video online where Gurpatwant Singh Pannu is saying, why are we letting these Indian Hindutva money come to Canada? Does Canada want to isolate itself and not have any investment anymore? Are Canadians not supposed to have jobs anymore? This is a really serious issue now. It's no longer about
serious
some,
issue.
imagined victimhood. This is
Yes,
gang
it's
war.
a serious issue for Canada. Now you have these terrorists who are calling the shots. Are these terrorists, Shashikant ji, in your appreciation, or are they actually extortionists and mafia who use Canada as a safe haven to target India? These elements are flourishing in Canada and able to carry out hits in India.
Well, like my friends have mentioned, it's become total mixture thing here. Of course, it has started as a Khalistani movement, but of late, like they have said rightly, there are drugs, there is the human trafficking, there is extortion, there is everything. And this will continue. I'm sorry for saying this thing. It appears it will continue primarily because the situation as it exists in Canada, it will ultimately lead to a vote bank politics. The gentleman was talking about Harper. What had happened when Harper had come here to India? He had specifically gone to the Golden Temple and met various persons who were hardliners, and they talk and they try to explain his positions. I don't think any political party, any prime minister in Canada will be in a position to take a stand against these persons. Yes, for the sake of it, for paper thing, yes, it will be there, certainly. There will be investigation, there will be everything, but I doubt. And second reason, the guys who have committed crime, they basically live in Germany. From there, they have come here, and because of their nationality issues and all those things, so they keep on moving around since they are Europeans. As per nationality is concerned, they move into USA, Canada, back to Europe. So it's a very complicated thing. I don't think any one government can take very strong action on this particular thing.
That's a very pertinent point you make. And I will come to the question whether this was an intelligence agency's project, a Western intelligence project to keep India in check. But that's a little later in the debate. Terry, if I could bring you in once again. Kushal spoke of a pattern. So, for example, just on the 12th of June, 2025, a business owned by that cousin of that murdered pro-Khalistani terrorist Nijjar, there was a firing that took place on 12th of June. 11th of June, a 57-year-old Punjabi origin businessman, I think Satwinder Sharma, he was shot dead in Surrey. Then on 4th of September, I'm taking you back to 2024, a shooting was reported outside, that rapper, AP Dillon's house, that was in Vancouver, again Canada. Then February 2024, bullet hole found near the window of Inderjeet Singh Ghosal's house by construction workers. Again, 2nd of February 2024, gunshots again in Surrey, in the British Columbia province, close to some associate of Nijjar. And then if I go back to 2023, 2022, it just goes on to indicate there's a big pattern, sir. And yet, so there's an extortionist division, extortion division, anti-extortion division, there's a crime division, and yet all of this continues to happen year after year. How do you see that?
Well, what's interesting, what you said, this is all quite correct. There has indeed been a wave of violence. And let's remember who the victims are, though. The victims, in every case you just mentioned, they are themselves of Indian origin.
Yes.
And that explains to some degree, I don't think it's a good explanation, but it's a kind of an explanation, the indifference and complacency of the wider Canadian society. Well, it doesn't affect us. It's all within their community. And that kind of attitude persisted throughout the many years of the Air India investigation, where the police rarely were able to distinguish between the good guys and the bad guys, and failed utterly to solve all of the other crimes that went along with terrorism. The political element and the religious part of it were two sides of the same coin. We're talking about the same people. And the explanation, such as it is, for Canada's complacency has always been that, as in the Kanishka bombing, where most of the victims were Canadian citizens, but they were of Indian origin. They somehow didn't count enough to make the police and the authorities in the Parliament of Canada to really take it seriously. And most recently,
but that's a very disturbing point, isn't it? Because
yes.
if I may, Kushal, drugs don't make this distinction whether browns are dying or whites are dying. And the same drugs available in the market would target their population. Human trafficking. Look at how initially those Pakistani grooming gangs, they thought that they're only trafficking Pakistani origin girls. Suddenly, they were targeting British girls. And for decades and decades, will Canada wake up only when Canadians, white Canadians, are targeted by these Khalistani elements? And I believe in some instances with human trafficking and drug trafficking, it's already started.
I mean, you should go to Vancouver, Gaurav, and see how drugs are affecting. You just have to travel in downtown Vancouver. You'll know what's happening with drugs. This has already started affecting Canadian society. And as always, Terry is right. Terry is spot on, because they look at it as a brown on brown issue. They always do that. And they don't understand. And the Khalistanis have played the victim card so well in Canada that they've somehow
learned well from the Pakistanis.
They made everything about victimhood, because victimhood epistemology is the essence of Canada. Everybody is a victim. Everybody's playing oppression Olympics in Canada. And the Khalistanis use it so well that if you just imagine, if anybody makes the kind of bigoted, casteist, sexist remarks that the Khalistanis make, imagine if it was an average white Christian in Canada making all these remarks. They would be chided. The entire state machinery would be after them. These things would happen. But just because it's like a minority, who cares what happens in Surrey? Who cares about what happens in Brampton? And eventually, the spillover of this will happen in downtown Toronto, in mainstream Vancouver, in all the major cities. Because right now they think we have enough Indian businesses of a kind to extort. Eventually, these businesses will be like, hame maaf karo, and they'll move on. They will invest in other countries. They will go somewhere else. Then what are these people gonna do? Because see, it's clearly not happening at the pace at which it happens in Canada and India, because they know in India, the law, even at times being excessive, is going to deal with it. The Indian law will actually deal with it. But here, it's a free for all. Just do what you want to do.
Okay. And Mr. Shashikant, as far as India is concerned, our intelligence agencies must be sharing all the latest information with authorities in Canada, or whether it's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police or it's their Foreign Office, telling them what's happening in their country, whether it's human trafficking, drug trafficking, the kind of elements who are going in and how they're damaging the Canadian society, their state. Is all of that happening? And despite that, are the political leadership in Canada responsible for the decay in their own system now?
Yeah, when I was in service, we used to have regular meetings with CNP guys and even guys from the intelligence, and we used to share. And I'm sure this practice, which was sort of institutionalized, is still happening. There's proper interaction, exchange of information. But again, like these my other speakers have said, the problem that comes up is a brown skin syndrome, right? The brown guy, okay, forget about it, move on. Again, the gentleman has mentioned about the downtown Vancouver. I've traveled through. You'll find on both sides of the road, you'll find these druggies, both whites and almost all the nationalities. Nobody is taking any action. They know from where this drug is coming. And Indians, as well as Chinese, they are deeply involved in this thing, that whether drugs and all those things. But Indians, yes, somehow they're going a step ahead in trying to claim for some support from within the country, because they have an agenda in India as well. They want to have supporters. They want to have their sleeper cells. So they are trying to do this thing to root this small section of Indians who are living in India. So it's politics, both ground as international politics, a terrorist thing. So this is all sort of getting mixed up, and that's
No,
brought
but
us
are
to
these
answer the
Khalistani
question.
extortionists, Kushal, a Frankenstein's monster, and have they, turned to destroy their own elements? For example, this recent Nagar Kirtan incident, they targeted a temple, but were they also targeting a Gurdwara with that graffiti, and they did not even spare a Gurdwara? What does that indicate, Kushal?
Well, that Gurdwara is the strongest anti-Khalistan Gurdwara in Canada. That's why they attacked it, Ross Gurdwara. You're
Yes.
talking about the Ross Gurdwara. The Ross
Ross
Gurdwara has
Gurdwara.
always stood up against these elements. The Ross Gurdwara is, very proud of its Indian roots, and that's why they hate it. So this is not the first time they've said things about the Ross Gurdwara. They've been after the Ross Gurdwara for a long, long time. And the management of the Ross Gurdwara successfully has, shielded the Gurdwara's management committee against these Khalistani elements till now. They tried to take over that Gurdwara for the longest time. They've not succeeded till now. It's going to go on happening until, see, Canada is a very top-down driven society. If the Prime Minister wants to fix this, it will. And I see some signs of it. So I will give credit where it's due. I do see Prime Minister Carney sending a signal. So there are subtle things that have started happening. Under Justin Trudeau, the intelligence sharing had stopped. Now CSIS and their Indian counterpart is sharing intelligence. We know that. There are some local police projects that have been taken off, and they are arresting as far as the extortion racket is concerned. But the problem is that, see, expecting a local person to rat out against these people is fraught with danger, because I don't want to name my source. I literally spoke to a person. I'm not even going to say which industry he was involved or she was involved in, because then it's so easy to find out who that person is.
Okay.
I spoke with them and they said they got an extortion call recently asking for $500,000 Canadian dollars. And I'm not making it up. This is the conversation, okay? I want $500,000. They're like, that's too much. $250,000? They're negotiating on an extortion call. This is how ridiculous things have become in Canada.
So, not freedom fighters, not mafia, they're now extortionists and gang members. Terry Milski, in your appreciation, and since you've studied this project so closely, is there a solution? What's the way forward?
Well, the way forward has to start with a recognition at the political level that we've been whistling past the graveyard. We've been ignoring this, and now look where we've ended up. What happened before Carney became Prime Minister, that it went way off the rails. The indulgence of Khalistani criminality just went far too far. Now we want to see from the new government actions, not words. For example, there's an easy acid test for this that you can administer. Is the Liberal Party prepared to throw out members of its caucus in the National Parliament who refuse to toe the Khalistani line? They have in the past thrown out, for example, Ramesh Sangha, Chandra Arya. They didn't play the Khalistani game, and they were booted out of the Liberal Party. Then last year, another Liberal member of Parliament, this is the ruling party in Canada, got up a petition in the National Parliament and used the Parliament's website to promote it, a petition for another inquiry that he hopes will blame the Indian government for the Kanishka bombing. This is an old nonsense that they're trying to revive, and it's very important to the Khalistanis. Now, he was allowed to go through with that. Nobody said boo. Nobody in the Liberal Party said, wait a minute, why aren't we throwing him out of the Liberal Party? Because this kind of nonsense, undermining the system which established beyond doubt that the Indian government was not, they didn't blow up the plane, the Khalistanis did. We know who did. And so my point is simply that will tell us, if you want to know when we've turned the corner, it'll be when the political parties, okay, we're not playing this game anymore. We think we may get more votes on the other side of the question than by pandering to the Khalistanis.
I will
We'll
let
watch
that be the last word on this part of the show. It's not words, but action on ground against the Khalistani elements.
Yeah.
Will Prime Minister Mark Carney rise to the occasion? Mr. Shashikant, Kushal and Terry, as always, many thanks for joining me on this India Today special broadcast.